Football was the center of Bill Miller's universe at that moment. He sat on his couch, staring at the screen with a devotion that only a true fan could understand. He loved football. In his mind, it was the absolute favorite kind of ball in existence. Of course, if he had to choose a second favorite, it would undoubtedly be the cheese ball. There was something about the salty, crunchy snack that paired perfectly with a Sunday afternoon game. However, his peace was quickly interrupted by the sight of his son, Brian, fiddling with something large and awkward in the middle of the living room. Bill looked up, his brow furrowed in confusion, and asked what was going on. Brian did not even look up from his project as he explained that he was just fixing his kite. He claimed that the aerodynamics of the device were all wrong and he only had 2 months to fix it before the kite club season began. Bill was incredulous. He had no idea a kite club even existed. Brian informed him that not only did it exist, but he was also the vice president. He explained the high stakes of his position, noting that if the president could not fulfill his duties, the vice president was the one who usually got beat up by the football team. Bill sighed, wanting nothing more than to watch his game in peace. He complained that he was trying to enjoy the broadcast, but his daughter Lauren and her boyfriend Chris had already started watching a movie on the same television. At that moment, Chris offered a polite greeting to Mr. Miller. Bill looked at the boy with a hint of suspicion, noting that Chris seemed to be over at their house quite a lot lately. Chris simply replied that he liked it there. Bill remarked that Chris should have seen the house back before there were so many people crowding the couch. He suggested that the teenagers go watch their movie over at Chris's house instead. Chris explained that they did not own a television set. This baffled Bill. He asked what they possibly did in their living room if they did not have a television. Chris answered that they mostly just sat around and read the paper. Bill, being his cynical self, then asked what they did in their bathroom if reading the paper was reserved for the living room. Lauren, embarrassed by her father's bluntness, pleaded with him to go watch the game upstairs. Bill finally gave in, grumbling about how much he hated children and labeling them as his least favorite kind of people. The night went on, and the house eventually grew quiet. Music played softly in the background as the hours ticked past midnight. Bill, feeling a bit hungry, headed toward the kitchen. He noticed a note on some leftovers that said the food belonged to Lauren and should not be eaten. Bill, being the master of his own domain, decided that since it was his house, he did not care about the note. As he moved through the darkened hallway, he was startled to see Chris sneaking down from the direction of Lauren's bedroom. It was well after midnight. Bill's protective instincts flared instantly. He demanded to know what Chris was doing. The boy looked terrified and insisted they were just studying and had accidentally fallen asleep. Bill did not buy it for a second. He threatened to help Chris accidentally fall down the basement stairs. Chris continued to plead his innocence, claiming that a large turkey sandwich had made him drowsy. This only angered Bill further when he realized Chris had also eaten his turkey. Judy, Bill's wife, came downstairs to see what all the shouting was about. Bill explained that he found Chris sneaking out of their daughter's room. Chris maintained that they had done nothing wrong. Judy stepped in to de-escalate the situation, telling Chris to go home while she talked to Bill. Bill was fuming, convinced that the neighbor boy was trying to take things too far with their daughter. Judy urged him not to go crazy, reminding him that Chris was a nice boy and that she trusted him. Bill countered by bringing up Chris's parents, Shelley and Terry, who were lesbians. He suggested that because of his unconventional upbringing, the boy might be more experienced or exposed to things than they realized. He imagined all sorts of wild scenarios like hot tub parties and naked camping trips. Judy dismissed these ideas as nonsense, stating that their neighbor's orientation did not make them obsessed with sex. Bill claimed he had seen enough movies on cable television to think otherwise. The next day, Bill and Judy decided to visit their neighbors to discuss the situation. They were greeted warmly by Shelley and Terry. Bill tried to act supportive, calling them brave Americans and saying they made the neighborhood feel hip and funky, like Greenwich Village. The neighbors expressed how much they loved having Chris around, describing him as polite and mature. Bill, however, was still convinced Chris was just looking for an opportunity to get close to Lauren. Shelley and Terry explained that Chris had told them about falling asleep while studying and promised it would not happen again. Bill remained skeptical, asserting that men lie. He even joked about how he would never steal beer from their garage again, which prompted Terry to realize they needed a lock on their garage. Despite the tension, Shelley and Terry insisted they had taught Chris to be respectful. They believed Lauren was safe with him. Bill pointed out that Chris was still a teenage boy and that the male species was not exactly the specialty of two women living together. The neighbors took offense, noting they had fathers, brothers, and had even dated men in the past. In fact, they revealed they had both dated the same guy in college, which was how they met. Bill's interest was piqued, and he jokingly asked for more details, but Judy quickly pulled him away. Back at home, Bill was still not convinced. He felt Chris was a weird kid and found it unnatural that the family did not own a television. He even joked about cleaning a rifle the next time Chris came over, despite the fact that he did not own one. Judy suggested that instead of being hostile, Bill should try to get to know Chris. She thought that if the boy respected Bill, he would be more likely to respect Lauren. Bill agreed it was not a bad idea. He decided to take Chris to the batting cages for some male bonding. His son, Brian, initially thought the invitation was for him and was very excited, but Bill quickly corrected him. He told Brian to move his mother's car instead. At the batting cages, Chris was nervous. He asked if Mr. Miller was still mad at him. Bill put on a friendly persona, telling Chris to think of him as a buddy or one of the guys. He claimed to be wise and experienced, having drunk from life's cup. Chris asked if Bill had been drinking today, which Bill denied, saying he wanted to stay sharp. As they started hitting balls, it became clear that Bill was struggling while Chris was quite talented. Chris revealed that his mothers had played varsity softball and had even gone to the World Finals in Sweden. Bill found himself intrigued by the stories of the all-girl World Finals, but tried to stay focused on the task at hand. Eventually, Chris decided to open up. He told Bill about a friend who was dating a girl. He explained that in this case, it was the girl who wanted to move too fast and do things that the guy was not ready for. Bill's protective nature kicked in again. He realized Chris was talking about himself and Lauren. Bill was outraged, not because Chris was being pressured, but because he felt Chris was calling his daughter fast. He lost his temper and refused to hear another word. In his agitation, he stepped onto the plate and got hit by a series of fastballs, yelling in pain. Meanwhile, back at the house, Brian was preparing to test his kite. He called it a pterodactyl and claimed it could withstand high winds. His mother, Judy, teased him, saying it looked like a pelican from a local restaurant. She joked that it would be impossible for him to get a girlfriend while carrying such a kite. When Bill returned from the batting cages, he was battered and bruised. He told Judy that their daughter was the one moving too fast in the relationship. He was ready to take extreme measures, but Judy insisted on talking to Lauren herself. Bill tried to use clinical terms like penis and vagina to prove he could handle the talk, but he struggled with the words, eventually settling on the names Patrick and Virginia. Judy laughed at his discomfort and went upstairs to speak with Lauren. In Lauren's room, Judy found her daughter with her friend Becca. After Becca left, Judy tried to have a heart-to-heart conversation. She told Lauren about the conversation Bill had with Chris. Lauren was mortified to learn that her father had been talking to her boyfriend about their romantic life. Judy explained that Chris felt things were moving too quickly. Lauren became defensive, accusing her mother of having a bad reputation when she was in high school. Judy was shocked that Lauren had heard those stories from so many different people. The conversation quickly devolved into an argument, and Judy ended up grounding Lauren forever, even though they were already in Lauren's room. Bill and Judy later tried to regroup. They realized they needed a more rational approach. They called Lauren downstairs to talk as a family. Bill tried to be the voice of reason, but the peace was short-lived. He noticed something on Lauren's neck and asked if it was a hickey. Lauren tried to deny it, claiming she had bumped into a door with her neck. Bill and Judy did not believe her. The situation became even more complicated when Shelley and Terry arrived with Chris. They were upset that Bill had taken Chris to the batting cages without their permission. As the families argued, the truth finally came out. Chris admitted that he and Lauren had given each other hickeys using a vacuum cleaner. It was not a result of passion, but rather a response to a trend at school involving colored bracelets. Different colors represented different levels of physical intimacy. Lauren and Chris wanted to wear red bracelets, so they would not look like babies to their peers. They had no intention of actually having sex. They just wanted to fit in. Becca, who was still around, confirmed the story and admitted she was scared of Judy. After the neighbors left, Judy had a final talk with Lauren. She expressed her concern about Lauren feeling pressured to prove herself to others. Lauren explained that high school was difficult, and she just wanted to make her life easier. Judy promised to be more understanding and told Lauren she could always come to her for advice. She even joked that she had plenty of experience to share, which Lauren found gross. In the end, the family reached a point of mutual understanding. Bill, however, was still a bit obsessed with the kite. Brian had finally managed to get his pterodactyl kite high into the air and went to get a camera to document his achievement. While he was gone, the kite disappeared. Bill told him it was time to move on. Despite the chaos of the past few days, life in the Miller household returned to its usual blend of humor, love, and the occasional misunderstanding. They had all learned a little more about each other, and most importantly, they had done it as a family.